I'm Jane Dingledine Hueston. My father was Raymond C. Dingledine Sr., and my brother was Raymond C. Dingledine Jr. And my mother was Agnes Stribling when she went to Madison. Later on, she married my father, and of course she became Agnes Dingledine. Mother graduated from Madison when it was just a 2-year college. And someone was going in the English department was going on sabbatical. Mother went back to graduation. They asked her if she would come the next year and teach for the person on sabbatical. So she did. And that's when she met Daddy. They were the 2 youngest members of the faculty. And they used to go together to meet the train to welcome the students to the college. My mother not only went to JMU, but married a professor, and then later was alumnus secretary for 25 years. In fact, one of the dormitories is named after her. Down in the village, Dingledine Hall. When we were growing up, we practically grew up on the campus. We were invited to a lot of activities. We would go see a lot of activities. We were allowed to go in the gym and shoot baskets. We were allowed to swim one night a week. On Saturday nights they had movies in the gym and we could go to those. It was a wonderful life. Mother and Daddy were always sponsors for one of the classes, and at the end of the year they would invite the whole class to a picnic supper in our yard. Mother always had fried chicken and strawberry shortcake. In between, they often invited students for Sunday night suppers. At that time, there was a close relationship between faculty members and students. Mother and Daddy just had a way of making them feel at home. I know several times college students who were so homesick would just come to see Mother, and then she would have them stay for a meal, just to give them a feeling of being at home again. And all of us children were mascots at one time of classes. I don't think they do that anymore. But it was fun because at Christmas they gave us a nice present. The class did. And on May Day, the students would get up early and come hang a basket of flowers on the door of a professor. And if there were children, there was always a toy for the children. We lived in a beautiful old home across the street from the college. At that time, it was always called the college. And we had a great big yard, so all the neighborhood children came after supper. And we played outdoor games. And in the summer, my mother would fix pitchers and pitchers of lemonade and cookies for us to have. Later on, the college bought our home, and they used it at first for another home management home. College students lived there. But then they tore it down and built Anthony Seeger School. As I remember, when I was growing up, there wasn't much communication between the college and the town. It was almost as if there were 2 separate towns. But my father, who had grown up in Harrisonburg, was one of the first faculty members to actively participate in the life of the town of Harrisonburg. My father was often asked to make talks at graduations or other places, and he was invited to speak to the CCC camp. So I went with him. For some reason, I was the only one who went with him. And I remember the young men were so polite and courteous. They were nicely dressed in khaki pants and shirts. And after Daddy's talk, several of the young men came up and thanked him. And then the man who was in charge of the camp invited us to stay for dinner. I remember they had wooden tables, no tablecloths, but that was fine. The food was real good. And that was fun to be included in something like that. Especially for me, I must have been about 12 at that time. I have fond memories of afternoon drives on Sunday afternoon when we did things as a family. We went to home Quarry. We children played in the creek. If it was hot enough, we went wading. We collected stones that we thought were pretty, took them home with us. Often we took a picnic along, just a simple picnic. Sandwiches maybe, something to drink, cookies. Many times we drove up to Reddish Knob. Daddy didn't like the drive because it was a horrible road, but we children loved to go up there. Climb the fire tower where you could see for miles in every direction. We also went up the mountain above Raleigh Springs. When we got to the top, we had to turn around, which was scary, to come back down. We also often, when the Skyline Drive was built, we often went up there and had picnics at some of the areas where you could stop. Our favorite place was Loft Mountain because we could see so many deer. I remember going up on the Skyline Drive to Big Meadows to the dedication of the Skyline Drive. There were lots and lots of people there, and I think President Roosevelt was there at the time. And that was a highlight in my young life, to see him. I can still remember the views from the Skyline Drive on either side of the mountain, but primarily looking toward the Valley of Virginia, toward Harrisonburg. One summer I spent a week at Big Meadows, and after supper we would sit on the porch and see the train come up the valley, and it would look like a toy train. But it would be beautiful just sitting there watching the view.